If you thought exorcists and exorcisms were the stuff of movies, then you would be wrong.
For the last 20 years, as well as conducting weddings and baptisms, Reverend Jason Bray has worked as a deliverance minister or exorcist, helping people to rid their homes of ghosts and spirits.
Well, his encounters have been documented in a new book, Deliverance, and Reverend Jason Bray joins us now to share the tales of his ghostly career. This has been fascinating today.
Yeah,
When I was reading all about this, there are points I need to get to big time. So, you started 23 years ago. You got your wife Laura, and you moved into a new home. This was, I think, before you were ordained. And you say there was a dark, cold, and it was atmosphere, and it was double glazed, and you couldn't understand it.
Yeah, it was actually just after I'd been ordained. So you basically get, given a house. So we'd seen it beforehand. It was cold, it was dark, it was January. That's how it is in January. When we moved in end of June, it was still cold, it was still dark. So we thought, well, actually, it's just it's just because nobody's been living in the house for the last year. This happens, and it never got any warmer. So around, and then Tom was born when we were there a couple of months afterwards. Particularly around his cot, seemed to be much colder than the rest of the house. Bled the radiators, did the usual stuff. It was still cold. We thought, well, it's got two external walls. Just one of those things, really. And then two things happened, actually. I went on a residential course. It was the following July, and I came back, and Laura, my wife, who's really level-headed, she hate me for saying that, but she is. Laura, my wife, said actually it was icy in his bedroom. It was around his cot. It was like walking into sort of one of those walk-in freezers. So I had to bring him into bed with me. And I thought, well, that's a bit strange. Shouldn't happen that way. And then a couple of nights afterwards, went to the bathroom and then came out. And just as I was about to open the door, there was this sort of, I knew that when I opened the door, I would see somebody. So it was like a guy standing in front of me, looking at me, glaring at me through this mask, that like a wooden mask with eye holes in it and grey eyes glaring straight at me. And, I knew instinctively that he was a priest and that actually there was quite a lot of hostility there towards me. Courage in both hands, opened the door, nothing there, of course, and it threw myself, under the blankets, and Laura said, OK, you need to do something about this.
Well, you went to your local vicar, I think, and asked for help. Now, that in itself surprised me because, you going to the church, that vicar's going to come, and he came to your house, and so that's acknowledging the existence in those early stages. So what did he do?
The vicar was my boss. So, I was the curate, like an apprentice, and, the vicar was the boss. He looked at me, he said, well, actually, you could bless it yourself, you're qualified. But he said, no, I'll do it, really kind of him. So he came round, he had a sort of bottle of holy water, a sprinkler, he had a prayer book as well. And he said, OK, I'll bless the house, you can follow me around if you like. So I followed him around the house as he blessed the house and splashed holy water, used some prayers, wouldn't show me what he was using, and I think some of them may even have been in Latin. And then we got back to the living room and we all said the Lord's Prayer together. And it was like this sort of instant change. It was like this house that had been cold and dark was suddenly warm and light, and we're having to turn the thermostat down, and it was actually quite pleasant.
You can sort of tangibly feel and see a difference in there, and so you decide actually this is an area of interest to me, and I think I want to know more about it. And we don't use the word exorcism here because you say that sort of people's heads go to demons and sort of possess things, and it's all not very nice. But so they call it. You are called a deliverance minister. And I think what shocked both Phil and I here this morning was the fact that this is very much recognised by the church, but they tend to keep it quiet. Why keep it quiet?
I think because there is a danger of sensationalising the whole thing. And what I wanted to do when I wrote the book was to try to demythologise and myth busting as well as ghost busting, if you like. Actually, this is part of what we do, but it's not particularly sensational. So most of the stories in the book are encounters that I have with fairly ordinary people, and but they're describing extraordinary things to me. So they've had sort of stuff moving around the house, that they've seen shadows, that they've seen, sort of somebody who really shouldn't be on the stairs, that they have to walk past.
Do you ever get scared? Have you ever sort of walked into anyone and gone, this isn't nice?
I've walked into places that feel really creepy, yeah. A bit like our house, really. And now that I know what it was like, I can walk into a place and think, actually, this is cold, this is dark, it shouldn't be. There's a story in the book about me walking into a house that sort of should have been light and bright and beautiful, south-facing, glorious sunny day. And it was like, it was horrible. It was sort of dark and damp and dismal. And, again, similar sort of experience. I took my colleague along and we said the Lord's Prayer and blessed the house and all that sort of thing. And as I said the Lord's Prayer, I felt my sort of back, strangely, arch backwards. So it was like sort of somebody was twisting me. And, then sort of got to the end of the Lord's Prayer. I'd got my eyes closed and my colleague standing next to me said, wow. And the couple whose house it was also said, wow. And suddenly the temperature had risen by 5 degrees or so. And it was like somebody turned all the lights on.
It's astonishing. But also, you go into people's houses, and obviously, when you see a reverend arrive with his bag of tricks, which I think you've got it there, we'll talk about in just a second. There's every possibility that, as word gets around the neighbourhood and the house price could go down. Now, not only was I stunned by the fact that that what you're doing, essentially the paranormal, is acknowledged by the church, but also it's the fact that you are insured by the church should people sue you because the cost of their house went down.
Effectively, yeah. So we're actually insured, for that reason, and that's one of the reasons why we don't talk about it too much. And writing the book, all of the, a lot of the details have been changed so that maybe people can recognise themselves, but nobody else can recognise them from, from the book.
What's in your kit? What do you take into someone's house?
What's in my kit? Well, I've got the bag here.
The Ghostbusters, the Proton Pack. That's what I'm hoping to see here.
So basic bag. It's got a whole load of stuff in it. It's got a whole load of books and bits and pieces. It's got useful cross. So that's the one I tend to wear when I'm going with me. It's got sachets of salt for making holy water, and it's got a communion kit. So we use bread, obviously, and wine, real wine. And then, the tool that we use most often is the holy water sprinkler. So when I go to a house, I'll, sort of go to the main room, explain what I'm going to do, usually bless holy water, and then get out the sprinkler and, and start from that room, work my way around the house, and then we come back. But that's the basic tool we use. So it's the...
Does it always work?
Sorry?
Does it always work?
No, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you can get situations where, it's not that at all. So in the book, I describe going back to see somebody repeatedly. We bless the house, and it's quite clearly not, not a sort of paranormal presence. It's something that's going on in her life. And,
is this the Poltergeist story? Where they thought there was a poltergeist.
Yeah. That's right. It's a sort of we tend to call it poltergeist activity, where I think in that case her necklace was moving. She'd actually filmed it. She was sort of showing me this this film of her necklace moving, and to be honest, it wasn't terribly exciting because it was just a necklace moving slightly. But quite clearly what was going on wasn't, wasn't a ghostly presence, if you like. It was something that was being triggered by her. And poltergeist activity, as we call it, when your shoes move around or the lights go on and off and all that sort of thing, is actually triggered by somebody alive and present in the house.
What is their energy? So it's like a build-up of energy that sort of moves objects.
So it's like this build-up of energy where, I've walked into places where I felt huge tension between, people. There's, a story in the book, in the first chapter, the shattered vase, where there's a mother and a son, and you can actually feel the tension between them when you walked into the house. And this tension had earthed itself, if you like, from it was the son who just sort of stood there and took it from his mother all the time, and her vase shattered. And she called me in because she'd spoken to other people and couldn't make any sense of this. So we had to say, actually, we will bless the house, but we don't think it's that. Actually, we think you really need to work at your relationship, with your teenage son.
Wow.
Good Lord. Well, you see,
Wow.
it still astonishes me that I'm hearing a sort of proper, real reverend, representative of the church, acknowledging all of these things. What do your parishioners, because you marry people, you do funerals, you do all the normal things that vicars do. What do your parishioners think of this?
What do my parishioners think of it? There've been people in the church before who've been involved in the deliverance ministry. They know I do it. They know a lot more about it now than they did maybe a couple of weeks ago. Most of the time, there's interest, but there's also concern as well from them, partly because sometimes I'm walking into situations that can be difficult or dangerous, but also because this is an astonishingly busy church under normal circumstances. It's one of the, it's a sort of tourist church with massive community activity. So, they're just worried that I might overdo it.
Well, I've got so many questions. It's ridiculous. I mean, I could just talk to you all day long, but I think I'm going to have to read the book like everybody else. Deliverance, that is what it is called, and that's got all the stories and everything. I imagine you've got lots of questions of your own, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. That's